Step into the world of power, loyalty, and luck.
I'm gonna make him an offer he can't refuse.
With family, cannolis, and spins mean everything.
Now, you wanna get mixed up in the family business.
Introducing The Godfather at ChumbaCasino.com. Test your luck in the shadowy world of The Godfather slot.
Someday, I will call upon you to do a service for me.
Play The Godfather now at ChumbaCasino.com.
Welcome to the family.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. 21 plus. Terms and conditions apply.
Welcome to the Dynasty Pulse once again. We are here for you on the Fantasy Sports Advice Network. Also, 101.5 FM, talking Tennessee, and dropping later on this week on the Undroppables. I am bigz. I'm here with Grindberg. We got Schultz in the building. Coach is here, and the inimitable Chev. We got a great guest tonight. I know Chev is looking up inimitable right now. We're thrilled to welcome our guest. He's the managing editor and fantasy football analyst at FantasyPros and Betting Pros, one of the most trusted voices in the fantasy football community. He's known for his insightful analysis, balanced takes, and deep commitment to helping fantasy managers make smart, informed decisions all year long. His rankings, articles, and podcast work have become must-follow resources for redraft and dynasty players. Today, we tap into his expertise. We'll break down key off-season storylines, draft values, breakout candidates, and fantasy strategies that give managers a competitive edge heading into the season. Let's welcome to the show, Pat Fitzmaurice.
Yo!
Hey, Pat.
What an introduction, bigz. Thank you so much for the kind words. I was kind of looking around like, who's he talking about? Is he bringing someone else on as a guest? But great to join you guys. I'm really looking forward to this. This is going to be fun.
Right on.
Thanks for coming in today. And everybody knows what you're up to these days, but tell us, everybody, what's really going on in your life and what you're working on with Fantasy Pros at the moment.
Yeah, well, life, geez, busy. We're about to graduate our youngest from high school this month. But as far as the work stuff, which is what people care about, we're putting some finishing touches on our dynasty draft kits. And I've been working on positional overviews, just sort of a philosophical approach to startups and managing each position in general. And I just did my first set of week one rankings today.
Whoa.
With the release of the schedule yesterday. Yeah, I know we draw on analysts from across the industry with our ECR, our expert consensus rankings, but we know people aren't going to be doing week one rankings for quite a while in most cases. So the staff guys had to jam those out. Just, we know people are going to be curious and start looking at those right away. So we wanted to get those out. Lord knows there are going to be a lot of changes between now and early September, but got something down, something to work with.
Good.
That's awesome. Well, we're going to get into our first segment here where we always probe our expert. And now we're going to be turning our attentions to the route runners and the roster builders, the wide receiver position, the cornerstone of our dynasty builds, from the breakout candidates to the sophomore surges to veteran values. We're going to target trends, dynasty outlooks, and we'll cover it all in this section where we're going to be probing our expert, Pat. So Schultz, run that video, buddy. All right, we're going to start it off with Chev. Chev, what is going on, my man, tonight?
Oh, man, any day on this side of the dirt's a good one, brother.
Believer.
I am a Kyle Williams believer. And I would like to start off by saying there's only one Pat Fitzmaurice. So, Pat, long time, big fan of your work. I want to know, how much. So when we're talking about the wide receiver position, there's so many advanced metrics that you can look up. So much so many stats and correlations and all that. Like with key advanced analytics like first downs per route run and yards per route run, you can get paralysis by analysis with some people instead of just kind of saying, hey, he got that dog in him. So what's one guy that you watched and then said, man, this guy's really good, and then the analytics didn't necessarily align with it, that you kind of planted your flag on, that people were like, well, his average yards per route run were no good, and he's not a good guy. So I want to know what that is for you. I don't have a whole lot other than to tell you, love your work, and I'll hang up and listen.
Oh, thanks, Chev. Yeah, I do have a guy in mind for this, and I'll be anxious to hear what you and the rest of the guys think of him, since things could still go any number of ways for this guy. It's Keon Coleman. And Keon's yards per route run in college were not very exciting. I mean, hell, he didn't even have an 800-yard receiving season in college, but Keon Coleman's contested catch ability was pretty extraordinary. I'm a Big Ten guy, so I noticed him when he was at Michigan State in 2022. Then he transferred to Florida State for his junior year and definitely stood out there because he had 11 touchdowns and because the Noles were in the NCAA playoff hunt until Jordan Travis got hurt. And the more I watched Keon at Florida State, the more I kind of talked myself into him being good enough as a route runner, thinking that the contested catch skills would kind of carry the day for him in the NFL, that maybe he'd be one of those guys like, I don't know, Des Bryant, Mike Evans, George Pickens, the guys who were never really good separators, but dominated at the catch point. So I don't know, in year one with the Bills, not a lot of target volume for Keon, but 19.2 yards per catch, 9.8 yards per target, kind of a big play guy. What do you guys think of Keon Coleman?
Sounds like Dante Thornton to me. No,
Don't you dare. Love
that Keon Coleman is being rejuvenized. That we tend to kind of move off of people really quickly, especially if they have a bad freshman season, and then they go out and they have 775 yards receiving and 8 touchdowns like Quentin Johnston. So don't write off Keon Coleman is my take.
Yeah, I mean, the Bills made an interesting move last year, moving out of the first round, knowing that they needed to save some draft capital to secure some of their defensive pieces last year. And, they obviously saw some talent in Keon Coleman. And I saw some, interesting things last year. And I'm excited to see what he has, because they didn't bring in anybody really of relevance to their team to compete with him. They've Dalton Kincaid might come around this year as a tight end target, but yeah, like the targets are going to be there. I think the opportunity is there. And without anybody surrounding him at this stage, I think Keon Coleman's a big winner this offseason for sure. And there's opportunity there. Coach, you're shaking your head in agreement here. What else do you have to say about that?
Well, I see with Dalton Kincaid, Jeff Mueller had kind of pointed out there's an image of Kincaid where there's some atrophy or something doesn't look right with the brace, that there might not be the recovery that we want on Dalton Kincaid. I love Elijah Moore plenty. I've talked about him a lot, but he's not going to be necessarily the cure. Could he get a little bit of bounce back? Sure. And then, of course, we have here. Oh, man, I thought that was my dog. I'm like, oh, hey, got that dog in you, right? So what I see is with the Bills, they were, 31st in team pass plays per game. It runs through Josh Allen. It will continue in the age 28 season to 29. But to your point, Keon Coleman has some stick-to-itiveness. He's still going to be there. And Amari Cooper was brought in. He proved to be dust. I still see it. This is like a cheaper version. Don't shoot the messenger, but it's like a cheaper version in this exercise of don't throw the player out with year 2 of Marvin Harrison Jr., but you're getting it on the Buffalo Bills in a less pass-happy team. There's a discount too. There's a dent in the can, like Big Daddy when he throws it on the ground. But Keon Coleman presents all that opportunity for a bounce back in his second year. And he's not Marvin Harrison Jr., but why can't he be the Caleb Williams to Jaden Daniels and improve?
I mean, he was at the top of the second round too, so it's almost like he was first round draft capital when you think about how deep that wide receiver class was last year. In retrospect, Keon Coleman probably, where does he fit right now in your rankings as far as where these wide receivers are going right now? Where would he fit in your rankings there, Chev? Aligned with some of these other guys at this stage.
I refuse to give up on Keon Coleman. I was a big Keon Coleman guy coming out, and the same things, so it's different, but we have the same kind of conundrum with Luther Burden. Like, you saw a guy who was dynamic with the ball in his hands. He was returning punts at 6'4", 215 pounds, and his change of direction skills for a guy with the ball in his hands he's as dynamic as they came at just about any other receiver in that 2024 class. He's just not going to be a polished route runner. But what he gives you is the fact that he's incredible at the catch point, as Pat alluded to. So he's being pretty much left for dead in a bunch of startups. He's going around like the 12th or 13th round. And that's, people were fading him for the things that Pat had alluded to earlier. So I'm going to buy because it's cheap enough to where if it doesn't hit, it's not going to kill you. And he went for a 4th and a 3rd in a trade on Dynasty Data the other day. So if the price is that, I'm going to be in and aggressively in 10 times out of 10, because I think that there's a bunch of the same dudes doing the Spider-Man meme in the Bills wide receiver room. And then there's Keon Coleman, who's this massive human being who showed you he can make big plays, and they don't have anybody else like that. They're the slot role is always going to have incredible value with Josh Allen. We've seen that from Cole Beasley to whoever else they had to, now Khalil Shakir. And so that's going to have value no matter what. But in order for that offense to take a step forward and beat big boy teams in the playoffs, the Chiefs, they're going to need a guy who can go, hey, I got that dog in me more than you do. And I'm 6'4" with like a 37-inch vertical, and my elevator goes to another floor that yours doesn't. So yeah, I am so glad that you said that. We're off to a great start. If you want to be best friends, just let me know.
I didn't know your vertical was that high, Chev.
I love that you mentioned the punt returning, Chev.
Yeah.
Total, I mean, that shows that he is more than just a contested catch guy. Like, he is dangerous with the ball in his hands, and the fact that they wanted him to be in that situation, possibly making plays with the ball, says a lot.
I think a big thing for him is going to be building that chemistry with Allen. He got his feet wet as a rookie. Now he's got an off season where he's not learning the ropes to actually develop that relationship. And for a guy who's not going to separate himself open, like, that's a big deal, being on the same page with your quarterback. And I think that could be a huge factor heading into year 2 for him.
Right. And I think with Amari Cooper potentially moving on here, like, he's not been signed yet. So like they're not going to have that veteran presence either in there, stealing away these precious snaps from him. So I'm excited about where his outlook could be. And thanks for pointing that out to us, Pat. And what else is great is, Schulte, tell us about our community that is thriving right now.
We are here. FantasySportsAdvice.com, offering the best fantasy sports social media platform. Why join endless Discord communities or the trolls of Reddit? Fantasy Sports Advice is a community designed to help you win with 24/7 support. Go to FantasySportsAdvice.com and become a pro member for unlimited access. Again, go to FantasySportsAdvice.com today.
Awesome. Do that, folks. And you know what, Pat? Really appreciate having you on the show here today. You were a real big inspiration to me getting into the fantasy football space and content creation years ago. I followed you for so many years, just following your rankings and stuff like that. And, you helped me make the jump, and you didn't know that, but now you do. And really appreciate all your insight and everything through the years. I really have been a huge ambassador of you, and this is a huge, bucket list item for me having you on our show. So, yeah,
very kind of you to say, my friend. I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
I got a question for you now. So last year, Marvin Harrison Jr. was the consensus wide receiver one in the rookie drafts headed into the year. But players like Malik Neighbors, Ladd McConkey, and Brian Thomas Jr., they all outperformed him with better rookie seasons. Now he's being viewed as a high-end wide receiver too in a lot of dynasty circles, with the Cardinals reportedly planning to showcase him as a focal point in their offense. Me, I'm still skeptical considering Kyler Murray's struggles, seeing downfield due to his size, and Trey McBride's contract extension. Do you think Harrison's skills will truly be maximized in that system, or is his current wide receiver 2 status more about evolving wide receiver landscape or less about his actual skill set? What's your outlook on him for the next few years in Dynasty?
I'm cautiously optimistic because I thought he was so terrific at Ohio State, and just thought he was too good to fail. The prodigy. I mean, his dad's a Hall of Famer, and like he's a bigger version of his dad, a bigger, faster version of his dad, maybe. But like I do have some concerns about the Harrison Kyler pairing. Like not a great sign that he was out targeted by what, like was it 50 targets or whatever by Trey McBride last year. Maybe it wasn't that many, but I don't know. The target count in Harrison's rookie year was not what we had hoped for. And a lot of Harrison's targets were of the deep variety. Like his average depth of target was 13.4 yards. That's not ideal. I mean, it makes it seem like Harrison is a vertical receiver, and he really wasn't that at OSU. I think he can be an all over the field receiver. And just for sake of comparison, like Jamar Chase had an average depth of target of 8.7 yards last season. Justin Jefferson was at 10.9 yards. CeeDee Lamb was at 7.6 yards. Like, get your star receiver some easy throws and let him do his thing. Joe Burrow throws deep balls to Jamar Chase, but he also throws him little hitches, quick outs, get the ball in his hands, let him make some magic after the catch. So yeah, I'm trying to be optimistic about Harrison's year 2 outlook, but I don't know if I can confidently project a major statistical leap. I'm just not that confident in the chemistry between MHJ and Kyler.
Does it concern you when you look at the fact that Trey McBride has a 75% catchable ball rate, Michael Wilson has a 66%, and then you get down to Marvin Harrison Jr., who's at 53%?
Yeah, and I heard, I think it was Matt Harmon talking about this, and like how Harrison had one of the lowest rates in the league of just like open catches where he was thrown to where he was open. And like, I don't know if it was just for lack of like getting the targets when he was open, or was he having trouble separating? I can't remember how Harmon framed that. I think he was like framing it as Kyler not getting him the ball often enough. So, yeah, just did not seem like it was a chemistry match from the start, and hopefully that develops a little in year 2.
Yeah, because that was one of my biggest concerns about Marvin Harrison Jr. was the connection with Kyler Murray, and Kyler Murray seems to not be able to, even on those deep shots, he just seems like off on a lot of those targets. They're not catchable, like bigz had mentioned. You know, he can't see maybe over his offensive line, or those defenders are getting in his way. And like you mentioned too, they got to design some better plays, more closer to the line of scrimmage, maybe in the middle of the field, that is going to allow him to make some plays, get those yak yards as well, because he's definitely no slouch in that area either.
No, he's so good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I sit there and think, who does Marvin Harrison Jr. think he is? Keon Coleman?
All right, bigz, moving on to you. Do you got a question for Pat?
Yeah. So right now, this is the time of the year that we start seeing noise from the rookie mini camps. Camps are getting started. Guys are in the best shape of their lives. We look at the agility around the blocking dummy. Why is Russ Wilson wearing uniform pants and a baseball hat doing drills? There's all kinds of information that came at us over the weekend. What do you do to isolate the summer signal from the noise of, these videos of rookies who are, running through blocking pads and stuff like that?
Right. The one-off videos of people making running a great route, making a great move to get open, a great catch.
Right. Jackson Dart put a Hall of Fame jacket on him already.
Yeah.
Look at that throw. Like, how do you separate the signal from the noise?
I guess I have to give a shout out to the legendary Sigmund Bloom for this one. I want to hear the drum beat. Sigmund always talked about that. Like who is forcing that steady drum beat of praise during training camp and in the dog days of summer when these guys are going through 2-a-days or whatever, like not just the isolated highlights, but I want to see beat writers talking about how good a certain receiver has been throughout camp. I want to see quotes from his teammates talking about how impressive the guy has been. I don't really care about the highlight videos on Twitter. I just want to hear that drum beat from the beat writers and teammates and coaches.
Okay. And Matt Waldman has a good piece that's out there about what to look for when you see a guy running drills and stuff like that. I just did a show last night with a guy named Trey Daubert. And one of his things is he doesn't look at analytics. He doesn't look at a whole lot of charts, and he doesn't watch when he watches film, he doesn't really look for the success or the finish of the play. He looks at knee bend and how flexible guys look. And that completely affects his rankings. And last year he hit on so many guys that everybody had written off. So I wanted to ask at that question of you, because there are things that you can glean. It's just you have to be able to separate it.
Now I got to work knee bend into my evaluations here, because I've never professed to be a scout, but like, yeah, if he hit on a lot of these guys and saw that, that's worth paying attention to.
He had Bucky Irving as his RB1 last year, and it was based on his knee bend.
Wow.
That's analytics at its highest level, apparently.
Right?
But
well, it's funny because we have Jerry Jeudy, the way, what is it, the valgus or the vagus, whatever it is, how he turns his leg, and then you have Travis Etienne. He actually runs on the outer parts of his feet. Schultz knows. He knows right away. So, Pat, question for you. In Dynasty leagues, Superflex, quarterbacks, running backs, they help make up the classic handcuff scenario, right? In Superflex, we know we got QBs. Of course, there's upside running backs. With tight end, we see rising young players. They usually go behind somebody like Zach Ertz, right? It's Trey McBride. It's Zach Ertz. It was Dallas Goedert. Maybe it's Ben Sinnott. With wide receiver, it isn't so much clear who are handcuff or contingent plays. This year, though, Pat, Emeka Egbuka for Chris Godwin comes to mind. Luther Burden for DJ Moore. Dare I say, all right, and this might get the blood flowing for some of us over here, Jaden Higgins for Nico Collins.
Dare you?
Are there any situations, Pat, across the fantasy landscape where we can pay a depressed price at wideout right now, but reap rewards due to another wide receiver shifting either to another team, possible injury attrition, or you see Luther Burden's going to outplay DJ Moore? Anything like that that's out there that we could be savvy on?
Oh man, this is a really good question, and I'm struggling to come up with a good answer. But I'm optimistic. Like Luther Burden maybe they see him as the slot guy, and he gets those slot snaps and maybe becomes Ben Johnson's new Amon-Ra St. Brown. I mean, I have a bunch of friends who went to the University of Missouri, so like I've been they have indoctrinated me with Luther Burden propaganda for the last several years, and I'm hoping he pops, but I don't know if this is a good answer. But so with the Broncos, Cortland Sutton was the clear number one receiver last year, and now there's a lot of attention on Evan Ingram because he's going to play this valuable joker role in Sean Payton's offense. But I can't stop thinking about what Marvin Mims did for the Broncos down the stretch last season. He had 6 touchdowns over Denver's last 7 regular season games, and he averaged 62 yards a game over that stretch, which doesn't sound wildly impressive until you consider that was with snap shares between 23% and 40%, 47% in every game that stretch. He never played even half of the offensive snaps. But from week 11 on, Marvin Mims was wide receiver 26 in PPR fantasy points per game without even playing half of Denver's offensive snaps. And I went and looked into this. He averaged 0.72 PPR fantasy points per snap in those 7 games. And just to put that into perspective, Jamar Chase averaged 0.38 PPR fantasy points per snap for the season. So over that stretch, Marvin Mims was basically averaging double what Jamar Chase averaged for the entire season. Obviously, I'm not trying to make the case that Marvin Mims is better than Jamar Chase, but
you said Mims,
I'm on record. You could definitely cut that up to make me look bad. So,
so I guess I would just ask you, Pat, and then go around the room. What would we want to send for Marvin Mims? How do we think we can pry Marvin Mims off of fellow dynasty managers? Maybe it's a team that's rebuilding and it doesn't matter, or both teams are competing, but you're trying to maneuver subtly this opportunity you're trying to see before it happens. What would you offload? Pick wise, player wise?
Yes, subtly is the key word, I think. Like, I'm almost trying to work him into a deal some other way rather than just coming straight out with an offer of a draft pick. Like, I don't know. I don't want to scare someone off by like coming out and opening with a 2026 third for Marvin Mims. I'd rather almost like work him into some other deal where, maybe I'm angling for someone else, like trying to bolster tight end and aiming for one of this manager's tight ends and seeing if I can't get Marvin thrown into the deal. Because, I do wonder if the people who have him on their rosters are as intrigued by him as I am.
I had him actually as one of my breakouts in one of our last shows that we just recorded right before this. And for all the reasons, like you said there too, but we can't discount the draft capital that Sean Payton went and did on him, because he moved up with very little draft capital that season. And we know it takes a long time for some of these wide receivers to develop in his offense. And really those short intermediate route, passes that he was getting at the beginning wasn't in his wheelhouse. Now he's getting opened up downfield. Bo Nix is now creating that relationship. Sean Payton wasn't really throwing the ball downfield with him at the beginning because, he's a rookie and they need to assimilate him into the action. And now they were able to use Marvin Mims a little bit more creatively near the end of the season. And I just think that this is a breakout. And I really like that call there, Pat. I was really excited when you mentioned Marvin Mims.
Oh, thanks. And I do feel okay that the wide receiver they added in the draft was Pat Bryant, because Pat Bryant is not explosive. I mean, he's big and physical, but he is not explosive. And
good hands.
So, I mean, he's complementary to Marvin Mims and not like a redundant skill set guy.
Could be the incumbent of Cortland Sutton down the line, just based off of his size and his skill set and whatnot. Yeah.
Looking over Dynasty Daddy real quick, we have some straight across trades for Najee Harris for Marvin Mims, Kyle Pitts for Marvin Mims. And then I found this interesting nugget. Somebody acquired Jack Besh by giving up Evan Ingram and Marvin Mims. I guarantee you the Besh side is a Raiders fan.
There you have it.
Is he in the room with us right now?
No, that's a ridiculous trade. I would not give up Evan Ingram and Marvin Mims.
Oh, I'm talking about somebody else.
No.
All right, Schultz.
Yeah. That Besh don't kill my vibe is not an endorsement of Jack Besh in any way, shape, or form. A couple things I would say on that. One, there's always been a role in the Sean Payton offense for a big play wide receiver, like a Devery Henderson, Robert Meacham back in the day.
Dang it.
Those guys have always had a role in that offense. And if we're assuming that Bo Nix is going to take a step forward, like that's going to have to be a role that's incorporated. Now we know, Evan Ingram got the money and he's going to be the Joker role. They drafted RJ Harvey, but Cortland Sutton only has, void years on his contract after this year. So I would assume that there's going to be a more solidified role after what Marvin Mims did. You can't take that off the field. And there's always been that role in the offense. So I absolutely love that call, Pat.
Yeah, I hope you're right, Chev, like about that he's maybe earned the bigger role going forward, because like the Devery Henderson thing is interesting. And like that, it's kind of a scary comp though, because that was a tough profile to chase in fantasy, because it was there 1 week and then you would get 3 weeks of nothing from him. And it was really hard to figure out when to start him. And that's my fear with Marvin Mims.
Right. And that might be where we are, but I just, I had to throw that out there because when we're thinking about Marvin Mims and what, like that touchdown against Cleveland, against the Browns on Monday Night Football just sticks out in my brain, but I feel like they could do more of that. And Marvin Mims is fully capable of that, but also Sean Payton likes gigantic, not very fast moving wide receivers. So it just, he basically said he acted like he hated Marvin Mims for various points of the season. And then Marvin Mims became undeniable. Some of the things you mentioned, it would be foolish of him to just continue to keep Marvin Mims, keep the training wheels on Marvin Mims and not unleash a guy that can take the top off the defense.
I'm with you. And hopefully, Marvin Mims, I think he's still only like 23. So maybe that's part of it, that Peyton just didn't have trust in him yet.
Third-year breakout.
There you go. All right, Chelsea, what do you got for our guest?
Yes. Let me see here. Let's talk about some Lions here. And lately there's been a ton of buzz here on the rookie third-round pick, Isaac Tesla. And I get he's a freak athlete. He garnered some good draft capital. Dan Campbell loves him. But I just can't fully get on board here for fantasy. We're always looking for the path to relevance, right? With rookies, and like that's part of the big evaluation. And I'm coming up blank here. At best, this guy's going to be 5th in targets on the team. Amon-Ra, Gibbs, Laporta, those dudes are not going anywhere. And I guess I could see them moving on from Jameson with this pick. But I still get the hunch that they're going to want to extend him too. This feels like a guy to me, like he's going to be a better real life addition for the Lions than he's ever going to be a fantasy player. So I wanted to hear your take on Tesla and how he's going to impact the fantasy landscape.
Yeah. I feel like I'm kind of where you're at with him, Schultze. Like the athletic profile is really intriguing, but the college production profile was pretty lacking. And I'm not sure why Brad Holmes gave up so much to get him. I mean, 2 third-rounders next year, like that seems like a pretty steep price to pay considering the talent you see in the third round. Those are day 2 picks. I do wonder if it reflects some long-term doubt about Jameson Williams, quite honestly. Just whether it's his injury history or just, like the gambling thing and whether he's got his head screwed on straight. But yeah, I mean, I do think Tesla is kind of an interesting lottery ticket, but I think the odds that he pans out for fantasy are probably pretty remote.
There are a couple things to note with Tesla. Number one, when he was at Arkansas, his quarterback was Jalen Green, who's not a passer. He's basically a running back taking snaps under center. The other thing is that he's a Michigan boy, so the Lions may have had their eye on him for quite a while. And there were some draft stories that came out about them being scared that he wasn't going to be available when it came their time to pick, which is why they made the move that they did. So you at a certain point, you kind of have to like push everything that to the side and just have faith in the team and what their mindset is.
And to me also as well, like to add to that too, his size, contested catch range. The guy had 0 drops in Arkansas. Like that's a 0% drop rate is pretty much unheard of when you think of the production he had. It says a lot, and the Lions obviously know their guys, know what's going to fit their system, and obviously maybe with Pat mentioning that Jameson Williams situation, yeah, I think there's some red flags there, and they want somebody that could open up the long field stretching kind of situation. And Tesla, he can make those contested catches. He could be a red zone threat for them. And I don't think he's going to be fifth on the pecking order. Honestly, I think he could come in here and put out some production year one, maybe halfway through, and we'll see what happens with Jameson Williams. Obviously the book is not out on him because there's so many red flags, and I think they're covering their bases like Pat had mentioned, and he fits the mold.
It may just end up being kind of like insurance where you love the talent, but to what Pat was talking about, you just have to look at past performance for future and past outcomes, like in insurance with risk. You've had injury and you've had suspensions, multiple, and you just get put into another pool. Even if it's not your fault, you become riskier. That's why your rate goes up. So this might just be a law of large numbers thing where the Lions are doing their due diligence with Jameson Williams, a little bit of indemnity here in the event that Jameson Williams continues what has happened in the past.
Yeah. One thing I wonder about is like, that when Ryan Poles picked Luther Burden in the second round this year, like he had talked that through with Ben Johnson, and like Ben Johnson had a plan for Luther Burden. That's what kind of gives me confidence about him. You just want, like, I'd feel better about Tesla if Ben Johnson was still in Detroit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I just don't know if like, Brad Holmes really, if there is a distinct plan for him, or if he's just maybe, trying to hammer a square peg into a round hole.
I look at it a little bit. So the insurance thing that you guys mentioned with a fail-safe in case they can't get something done with Jameson Williams, I think that's a very astute point. The thing that I wanted to bring up is they brought Tim Patrick back for a 1-year, $4 million deal, and he's kind of their dirty work ex-receiver guy that has some spike weeks. I think that they wanted to get, younger and more athletic at the position, prior to Jameson Williams actually being a full-time player. That role was filled by Josh Reynolds, then filled by Tim Patrick. Now they bring in Isaac Tesla, who's a RAS freak, 6'4", 214, 15 pounds, whatever, with the 9.93 or whatever, 9.53, whatever it was, RAS score. I mean, and he popped at the Senior Bowl. That was one guy that bigz brought up almost immediately. It was like, hey, there's this guy from University of Arkansas, and we both have Arkansas connections. I live here. Bigz went to school here. And there's this guy from Arkansas named Tesla that I'm going to keep my eyes on. And then he gets this draft capital. So I was trying to do some digging to see where this could work. I think that it is a fail-safe in case they can't get something done with Jameson Williams. But I also think that they're looking for the long-term replacement, because that role for Tim Patrick is a real role in their offense. And so in order to, kind of keep the continuity going, I think that's where they're going to line him up. They're going to try him. And he does offer a little bit more athletically. I don't know if I wouldn't say that he's as polished of a receiver, but he does have the strong hands of just kind of like a Tim Patrick. And he's going to be on a rookie contract for the next 4 years. And so I think that's the perspective that I would look at it from.
All right.
Yeah, that's why I totally think he's going to pan out better as a real life NFL player for them than he'll ever make a fantasy guy.
That actually also kind of leads to the question: how, Pat, do you see, or do you have a finger on the pulse of how Oakland Raiders legend John Morton is going to change that offense with Ben Johnson leaving, seeing as how Morton wasn't a Lions incumbent, he came over from Denver? Do you have any angle on how things are going to shift in Detroit?
I don't yet, honestly, bigz. I've not dug into that yet. So, I would imagine they want to keep elements of the Ben Johnson offense. I would expect that it's still going to be kind of a split backfield, that they're going to use the 1-2 punch of Gibbs and Montgomery. I'll be curious if Amon-Ra St. Brown's target share kind of gets back to where it was before last year. It actually kind of fell off last year a little bit, and He was able to keep up his fantasy value by elevating his catch rate and touchdown rate, like the previously unforeseen highs, like catch rate over 81%. That helped too. But he went from, I think, 10.2 targets a game to 8.2.
Yep.
So I want to see. That's what I'm most interested in, whether his role goes up, because right now I don't know if he's a worthy first round pick in I know it seems kind of wild, but
that's juicy.
He dropped from
targets a game.
He dropped from 164 targets in the All-Pro season to 143, and then outside of touchdowns in 5 weeks, he wouldn't have been usable for fantasy. So that's that's a great point, Pat.
Right. Yeah, and just not a big play guy, so he needs that volume.
Yep.
All right, folks, we're going to get into one more segment here where we're going to get into some wide receiver action, old hands, new plans. We're going to talk to Pat about a guy, and we'll dig a little bit more into this. We'll all have maybe a comment or two on Pat's guy that he's going to have this year, as he's going to be buying in Dynasty, a player that's been undervalued, overlooked, or simply has got some more left in the tank and that the market believes he doesn't. So, Pat, tell us a little bit about your guy and why you think this year is going to be his year for another bounce back year, and we'll have something to say about it.
Yeah, in leagues where I see myself as a contender, I kind of want to get in on Stefon Diggs. And I know he's 31 and coming off a torn ACL, but Diggs should be ready to go for the start of the season, maybe a handful of games into the season at the latest. And he is pretty much poised to be the go-to receiver for young Drake May, who was really impressive last season, even though he was working with a lousy supporting cast, including one of the worst groups of pass catchers in the league. But, back in 2020, when Diggs joined the Bills, he helped a young Josh Allen make the jump from inconsistent young QB to superstar. And that first Diggs season in Buffalo was Josh Allen's breakout season. Even though Diggs is a little older now, maybe he can help Drake May take a big step forward.
Yeah.
Drake May, my Josh Allen comp. And also the Javon Baker shade did not go unnoticed. I just want to throw that out there.
Well, I was going to talk a little bit about Javon Baker, but also another guy that they brought in here, Kyle Williams, who, could have an opportunity right away. How do you think he shakes into this Patriots offense and, how it fits in with Diggs' role?
Oh, man. It'll be nice to have him, for Drake May to have him as his 7-11 guy who's always open. Because, that is what Kyle Williams' calling card is. His short area quickness and his ability to get open like lickety split and, maybe help Drake May get some easy completions.
It is tragic that Chev face right now is not playing out over the radio. Schultze, who's your guy?
Oh, all right. We're going to talk about some Calvin Ridley here. So I love Calvin Ridley coming into this year. We've seen in the past 2 years, 2 separate teams, 2 separate offenses, very similar usage with both teams. They're using him deep. In 2023, he was wide receiver 18. Last year, wide receiver 28. Currently in dynasty startups, we're looking at wide receiver 50-ish, like right in that ballpark. So past 2 years of production, you're already outpacing your draft ADP here, right? He topped 1,000 yards both seasons. Like I mentioned, the usage 2023, he was 8th in air yards. Last year, he was 1st in air yards. 2023, 8th in deep targets. Last year, 3rd in deep targets. 2023, he was 22nd in ADOT. Last year, he was 5th in ADOT. So, all the metrics here are lining up that they're using Calvin Ridley downfield. And especially in this Callahan offense, that's not going to stop. We know Will Levis stunk. He had a 59.2 catchable target rate to Ridley with over 1,000 unrealized air yards. The opportunities were there. Calvin Ridley still produced on top of the fact that his quarterback stunk eggs. So, we've got a real upgrade here with Cam Ward. And I think Calvin Ridley and Cam Ward are going to, they're going to make a nice connection. And going back to the last 2 season things getting used on 2 different teams, he's produced with 2 new quarterbacks in back-to-back years with Trevor Lawrence and then Will Levis last year. So the fact that he's getting another new quarterback doesn't concern me at all. Some trades I've seen, I was looking on Dynasty Daddy. Ridley got sold for Quentin Johnson and a 405 pick. I would take that all day.
Yes.
Though, let's see. I wrote that one down wrong, but Ridley for 304 and a 4th. What are we doing here with that one? So if you've got a guy who's going to bite on some mid-draft picks for Calvin Ridley, take that to the bank.
Man. Oh. I don't. That's it. Wild. I'm not gonna. It makes me so upset that people are just punting Calvin Ridley. But we got to take what the market says and profit.
And with the quarterback who's not shy about throwing it downfield at all.
Right.
I like the Ridley pairing with Cam Ward.
Yeah, I think he's an uncut gem right now headed into this year as far as, complete upside and a guy that people are, going under the radar. He's not so much under the radar now as we're steaming him up with the new quarterback pairing. And Chev, who's your guy? Who's your veteran wide receiver that you want to see come back in 2025?
Well, boys, well. We just spent like 5 minutes talking about him potentially being on a new team next year. And I was honestly, I've done this thought exercise. So I determined that it wouldn't be bad for him to be on a new team, because that means that he would be making about $25 to $30 million a year. So my player is Jameson Williams. So we finally saw Jameson Williams as a breakout this year. He recorded over 1,000 yards on 90 targets, and then 7 touchdowns, another touchdown rushing. I think he can take another step forward in the offense. We saw John Morton talk about him being a potential breakout candidate, and that's too much for me to ignore with all the continuity surrounding them. Just a change in play caller being the only thing that we have that changed. They still have the best offensive line. They still have Jahmyr Gibbs. Defenses are still going to have to stack the box to stop that run game with him and David Montgomery. So Jameson Williams is a guy that I find very intriguing, especially because of the fact that we saw him, the whole receiver profile with Bryce Young at Alabama. We know he can do more than he's being asked to do. So I am intrigued to see where it goes. I feel like the elevator is going up for him if he can stay away from the gas station boner pills and gambling apps.
All right, Pat, do you have a comment on that?
Yeah. I'd like to think that the elevator is still going up for him. And, there was a reason they drafted him as highly as they did. Like, he was just electrifying at Alabama when healthy. And, kind of a slow start to his career related to the recovery from injury and, then the suspension. But, yeah, last year we saw him start to I wonder if that wasn't part of the reason that Amon-Ra's target count was down, because they felt like they had to, this mandate to get GMO more involved. Like, he is an electrifying playmaker. So, I like Chev's point on that one. And maybe it's it doesn't feel like a lot of people consider him a buy in Dynasty right now, right? More of a hold guy, but maybe we should be buying.
Well, you're not going to be my thought process. You tell me if I'm wrong, Pat. People who have him feel like I waited so long for this to happen, and it happened. And now I feel like it should keep happening. This is me with a lot of Jameson Williams shares, as opposed to I need to get off of this ride before, I get left holding the bag. I used the falling knife analogy way wrong a bunch of times, Jeremiah. I'm not going to do it this time.
Hey, you need to call your doctor if it's longer than 4 hours. Speaking of,
you need a pill for that. All right. I'm going to talk about a guy then. I haven't been able to hit him on the right season. I've been up and been down. And then every time I've been up on him, he's kind of just not hit the way I wanted him. And I'm talking about Jeudy. And after last season, I just saw a lot of good things happening for him. And he's quietly becoming an undervalued veteran in my books. He had a slow start to 2024, but he surged in the second half. He finished with 90 catches and a career high in receiving yards, and he averaged 18.5 points per game over his last 8 games. He doesn't have a whole lot of competition for targets in Cleveland. Yes, Cedric Tillman and David Njoku are there, but I don't think they're going to pose serious threats to his volume. Add the upside of Joe Flacco flinging him the ball. And I just think that Jeudy's potential in 2025 and beyond is undeniable. I'm not going to be fooled with that wide receiver 2 label. I think he's a guy that could pose wide receiver 1 upside like he has done in the past. It's just he's been disguising it. And after, some challengers come forth, I think that Flacco's there. Jeudy's primed to outshine his value in 2025, and I think he's ready to go and blow up again with Flacco there. Anybody?
Well, Pat, what do you think? What do you think?
I like Jeudy a lot too, and I want to be all in. The two things that are kind of annoying me about it, like, I mean, he's really good at getting open. He's really good after the catch, and we finally saw it all come together for him last year. And I'm kind of buying into the talent. I don't get what Deontay Johnson is going to do for the Browns. Like that bothers me. That's just like, I mean, maybe he's just a problem and he doesn't even make the 53, but that's just kind of a little pebble in my shoe as far as Jerry Jeudy goes. And the other thing is, I feel like if we knew it was going to be Flacco starting like 9, 10 or more games for them, great. But I feel like they are obligated to audition both Dylan Gabriel and Shedeur Sanders this year to know where they stand at quarterback going into 2026, which looks like a pretty QB-rich draft.
But both those guys could potentially fling the ball too, right? I mean, they're both, pocket passing present quarterbacks. So I think they're going to pair up with Jeudy regardless, and they're going to need a guy that with a veteran presence. And like you mentioned, Deontay Johnson, he's had his challenges in the past, just staying on a team as far as last year. Like you mentioned, he may not be even being on that team. And interesting situation headed in here. Now, Schultz, what do you got? Sorry, is it Coach? Coach, you got a question or is it bigz?
Oh, yeah. Sorry. Look, do what Schultz said. Calvin Ridley, hey, man, he's this year's Terry McLaurin. Now, moving on. For Chris Godwin, he's my guy. Run until the wheels fall off and we got to call AAA. For him, last year, Godwin had a 7.79 Trinity score. Destination Devi, DD Fantasy Football. A score above 6 is good. 7.79 is phenomenal. 3 games last year in the 7. Top 12 receiver. So receiver 1 games. And there was a receiver 1 overall week for Chris Godwin. I'm in on Chris Godwin. We spoke to Emeka Ibuka, maybe being a handcuff to Godwin. But for the foreseeable future, so long as he's healthy, in that printing press that is Baker Mayfield and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, I'm going with Chris Godwin, especially at the discount that I can get with the injury concerns. He's just going to go back to the printing press and print numbers in 2025, be it he's healthy. What do you think about that, Pat?
I'm just waiting to see that he is healthy, and then I will be fully on board. It does scare me that the last time we saw him, his foot was basically, dangling, and like that's just an image I've had a hard time erasing from my memory. So once he's running around catching passes, taking hits, I'll feel a lot better about it. But yeah, I'm on board. I mean, Godwin's a stud, and like I've had so much of him over the years, and am anxious to roster him again.
Love it.
Hey, are we letting bigz say it?
Yeah, I got a guy.
Take us home, bigz.
I got a guy, and it's kind of the law of averages. He's got to hit at some point, right? Speaking of guys who are coming off of injuries, hoping he can use this training camp time to get back on the field and establish himself. Going from being in a situation where he finally has a new quarterback, and he can establish himself in the offense. I'm talking about Treylon Burks. You want to talk about guys that we can't quit? I cannot quit Treylon Burks. I look at Keenan Allen. I look at Devontae Adams. Those guys had a long runway before they hit in fantasy. I will never give up on the talent that I saw out of Treylon Burks. And if he's going to put together an audition for the new contract he's going to get next year, it's got to come now. And he's free. You can get him off the waiver wire. If somebody who's crazier than me still has him on a roster, it's not going to take much to pry Treylon Burks away. When is Treylon Burks going to finally smash, Pat?
Oh, man. I'll feel so bad if it was this year, because he was just my last cut in a league where I had to get down to 28.
Same. Yes, I had to move him for the draftees coming in.
That's awesome.
But man, I would love if he had a second act, and well, maybe it's his first act in the NFL. But yeah, I mean, I'm a sucker for the catch and run guys, and I fell hard for Treylon coming out of Arkansas. That's
good to hear. I'm glad to know I'm in good company.
All right, Pat. Thanks for coming on to the Dynasty Pulse tonight. We've had a great time having you on. And why don't you tell our viewers where you can find all your stuff before bigz takes us home, as he always does.
Yeah, guys, thank you so much for having me. I had a blast tonight. People can find me on Twitter and Blue Sky at Fitz_FF. Go to fantasypros.com and check out the Fantasy Pros football podcast and the Fantasy Pros Dynasty podcast.
Fantastic. All right. If the level of ball knowledge in this room tonight was absolutely off the charts. So I'm glad we made everybody out there better fantasy players. Thank you, Pat, for coming on. And the rest of you guys watching in Fantasyland and listening on the radio. We hope you win.
Hope you win, folks. Peace out.
Hope you win.
Hello, it is Ryan, and we could all use an extra bright spot in our day, couldn't we? Just to make up for things like sitting in traffic, doing the dishes, counting your steps, all the mundane stuff. That is why I'm such a big fan of Chumba Casino. Chumba Casino has all your favorite social casino-style games that you can play for free anytime, anywhere with daily bonuses. That should brighten your day a little. Actually, a lot. So sign up now at ChumbaCasino.com. That's ChumbaCasino.com.
No purchase necessary. VGW Group. Void where prohibited by law. See terms and conditions. 18+.